Welcome to MathTalk. I'm your host, Brian Heisler. And today I want to give you some tips and tricks to help you get through this GED math test, help you get through questions a little quicker, a little easier. So let's get started. First of all, the most important thing that I want to put forth to you guys is that you really should answer every question. It's going to help you out. If you don't answer a question, you're going to have a 0% chance of getting credit for it. If you at least put an answer, you have some chance of getting credit for it, getting points for it. You have about 2.5 minutes on average for each question. Some of them are going to be a little quicker for you, some of them are going to take a little more time. So pacing is going to be important. If you find yourself taking a good amount of time on a question, you might want to flag it, go back to it later, but make sure that you do go back to it later and put an answer, whether it's fill in the blank, multiple choice, drag and drop. Put an answer down so at least you give yourself a chance for points. So in saying that, let's go and give you some tips for some of the questions you might run into on this test. All right, absolute value. Every time they ask you a question about absolute value, your answer has to be positive. So if you get multiple choice question, you see some negative answers in there, automatically eliminate them. Some of the times I see this is they'll ask you, what is the distance between this point and this point on the number line? Well, really what they're asking you is for a positive number. So keep that in mind. Another thing is when you're asked to divide by a decimal. This would be on something like the non-calculator part. When you divide a number by a decimal, your answer should be bigger than your original number every time. So here's an example of why that's true. If I give you something like 18 divided by 9, the answer is obviously 2. So I can write that in. Let's go red. 2. If I give you something like 18 divided by 0.9, the answer actually turns out to be 20. The reason is if you take a number and divide it by 1, you're going to get the original number. If you divide by a number that's less than 1, you're looking for a number that your number is smaller, so it should go into that number more times. So when you get decimals, you get smaller and smaller numbers. When you divide by them, your answer should be bigger and bigger. All right, let's keep going. Percents to decimals and vice versa. When I think of percents, I pretty much automatically think of cents and I think of money. It's a nice little easy way for me to remember how things should be written, and I want to go through a couple examples to show you that. So if you're given 80% and you're asked to turn it to a decimal, if I hear the word 80%, I think of 80 cents. When I think of 80 cents, I think of 0.80, which is the decimal form of 80%. I think of 174%, I think of 174 cents or $1.74. $1.74 is written like that. And there you go. All you're doing is moving your decimal point 2 spots to the left. Now vice versa, if you're given a decimal and asked to turn it to a percent, you're moving the decimal point to the right 2 spots. So if I see 0.31, I think of 31 cents or 31%. And there you go. Same thing with 2.13, I can think of it as $2.13 or 213 cents, 213%. It's just a nice little easy way for me to get from one to the other. Let's keep going. Okay. A couple of times I've seen questions on the non-calculator part that'll give you a variety of numbers, decimals, fractions, and they'll say either order these from least to greatest, or they'll give you a number and say put this in the order it should be in, whether it's in the middle or in the left or the right or whatever. The easiest way, in my opinion, to get through questions like this is to make sure all the numbers are of the same form, either all decimals or all fractions. That way you can more easily verify which one's bigger, smaller, etc. And I prefer decimals. Decimals to me are just a lot easier to tell compared to fractions. So what I would do is I would take 1/3, 3/8, and 1/4 and turn them into a decimal. 1/3 I know is 0.33 repeating. I'm just going to call it 0.33. 3/8, well, I know 1/8 is 0.125. So 3 of those is going to be 0.375. And then 1/4, it's a quarter. A quarter is 25 cents or 0.25. Now I have all of my numbers in decimal form. I can look at which one is the smallest, the second, the third, the fourth, etc. And it's a lot easier to put them into order from least to greatest, or to figure out where one should go in an order of them all. So I hope that when you get to these types of questions that they're a little easier for you now, and you can get through them a little bit quicker to save yourself some time and give yourself more time on other problems.
When you visit us at GEDyes.com. For future tips and videos, be sure to subscribe and follow.